The next thing that I wanted to talk about was actually mentioned earlier by Lauren. She mentioned having enough employees working at the store. And that's very important because customer experience can be ruined if you don't have enough employees to help serve the customers. And I've seen this so many times, and that's especially true in this day and age where you don't have people who want to work. You have people who are lazy. I've got a story to share about that. I went to the local branch of a major electronics store who operates nationwide. I just had a question about a computer I was bringing in, and they have a whole dedicated department to answering questions and repairing devices. I was waiting in line for a very, very long time, probably for a good 45 minutes or so, due to the fact that they didn't have enough employees behind the counter. So when they see customers, they have to see each one individually. If they have computers, they have to repair it right there while you're waiting in line, and that causes the line to get larger because they're just going to start looking at your computer or your device, and it could take a long time to service. This causes a line to back up because they don't have enough employees to take customers as they come in. There were 2 employees running the counter, and they had customers with some very complex issues that they couldn't just solve by answering a question, so we had to wait on them to service their computers before they would call the next person up. And that was bad. And this was especially disappointing for me because it was a store that I go to quite a bit and I know always has great customer service. But at the service department, they were lacking in employees and therefore caused, customer service to not be so great. I'm not pleased with what I went through. But when you don't have enough employees to serve your customers, you are destroying not only the customer experience, but you are destroying the image of your store. You don't want that to reflect on your entire business, especially if you're nationwide and you have locations everywhere.
Most of the trouble is in one of your other episodes we've said before. It's the staff. As the staff retire, as the staff decide to move jobs, the managers don't tend to want to replace them. They want to save the money and use it on something else, an overtime or anything like that. I've seen it many years, for sort of 30 odd years. Every single company is exactly the same. They're only out for just saving enough money as they can.
Mm-hmm.
But it then doesn't help the remaining staff that are struggling to try and still be customer faced and still trying to be positive and trying to serve the customer the best they can, being polite when people are shouting because of the line, like yourself, your situation.
Mm-hmm.
They've not got enough staff. Well, no, there's probably overtime bans, or there's the fact that staff have just left and they've not replaced them.
Right.
It's just like a vicious circle. Sometimes the companies need to look and think, right, we need so many members of staff. Let's make sure every area is covered. Even if someone's having lunch, let's have someone cover the lunch breaks. Then you could have a seamless overlap.
Mm-hmm.
It's just management. It's always the management you have to blame.
Yeah,
on that.
I agree. Management just doesn't have a good staffing plan in place. So because they fail to hire enough staff should someone leave or go on break, because even when you go on break, you need to have somebody to fill in while that person's away. That can cause your whole store to collapse. And what I saw when I went to this computer store to get my repair, I could tell that they were not doing a good job in staffing. Having 2 people to service a really long line of customers just wasn't acceptable, because some of the customers that were in line had really, really complex issues that had to be taken care of on the spot. And because they didn't have any additional staff members to call the next set of people in line, we had to wait on these 2 guys alone to service the customers who had unique problems that couldn't be solved within 5 minutes or so. I would say that I estimated being in line for a good 45 minutes just because of the lack of staffing. And you can't really blame the customers, because they had unique problems. They need to make sure that every single little detail was looked at when the customer was being served. You can't just ruin their customer experience by rushing them out of there because you don't feel like serving them. If you're doing that, you don't deserve to have your job.
So on the associate side of your story, Christian, I've worked, again, going back to the department store that I worked at, I worked in customer service on a mid shift. So what I would do was a typical 1 to 7 or 2 to 8 p.m., 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., whatever shift. And with a 6-hour workday at that particular company, you get a 20-minute break. It's just a rest break. It's paid. You just go and relax or whatnot. There have been times that I didn't even get to take my break because I was so busy helping the customers. The policy at that particular company is, even at the cashiers, it's the exact same policy. It's 2 customers for every associate. So what that means is, say you're working cashier and there's 2 cashiers at the registers and 4 people in line. You don't have to call for backup because there's 2 customers or 2 parties for every associate. Now, once a 5th person comes up, technically that's when you're supposed to call for backup. Now, you're not supposed to call for backup if you're just finishing with your customer when that 5th person comes up, because when you call the customer, it goes back down to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's say you have a whole line forming at customer service, for example, and you're the only one working there. So again, the 2 per 1 rule states that I'm allowed to have 2 people at the end line. Even when I'm helping somebody, I'm allowed to have 2 people in line per just me. Now, once I get the 3rd person in line, and let's face it, Christian, there have been times where the line forms out of nowhere and you got a whole slew of people coming up to your line and you're the only one working there. So a line literally will form out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened to me before. So naturally, I call for backup. Well, there have been instances, even with management, accusing me of taking too long with the customers when, if they just check the cameras, I literally called the next person in line, who, by the way, was the first person in line, and then as I call them, the next thing you know, a line forms out of nowhere. So I've been accused of taking too long with the customers when that's really not the case.
No, not
And
at all.
that's one of the reasons I actually left that company. Is because I was tired of being accused of things that was clearly not the case.
Yeah.
And they literally, well, the customers sometimes don't understand. And Christian, I'm not sure if this was the case for your situation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes there's nobody who can help out. I've called for backup at customer service numerous times at one particular location that I used to work at before transferring. And you'd have a supervisor, a front end supervisor coming to help you out. You'd have, depending on the severity, hell, the manager would come in and help you out if need be, just to help get the line down. And then there were times, even at the same location, before transferring, that I wouldn't even have anyone helping me out. And the latter goes true for when I did transfer to a different location because of relocation, moving, and whatnot. I had to transfer locations because it was closer. And there have been times that I tried calling for backup, and let's see, department supervisors were busy with other customers,
Mm-hmm.
or they just didn't, they just don't come up and help because they don't know customer service.
Yeah, that happens
And
quite a
that's
bit.
crucial. That's crucial.
That happens quite a bit, and we're seeing that more commonly than ever now because due to the lack of work ethic, as I said many times, you don't have enough people to help. The most important employees, they need to be available at all times, and when they go on break, you need to make sure that you have somebody who has equivalent knowledge of that same employee available on hand so that they can fill in for them. You need to make sure that you have enough staff to serve customers. What you said about not having the appropriate staff there, that's unacceptable. When a customer comes in and has a specific question or needs assistance, there should always be somebody on hand. You should never hear that person is not here today or that person's not available right now. If they're not available, find somebody who is equivalent to that person to get them to help. There should at least be 2 people per department, in my opinion, to help out. That way, when one's not there, the other one can step right in and serve the customer.
Couple of stories on staffing. It can be very important to make sure that you hire enough staff to run things, especially if mission critical people go out of commission. When I was 17, we were taking a family trip out of town to a different time zone, and I left my mobile phone at the time at my parents' house because I was still a minor. I left it turned off and unplugged. And I told my boss that I would be out of town. And in that time, my coworkers saw that I was not scheduled any hours the 2 weeks I was out of town. And when I came home to 96 messages from coworkers asking me to come in and cover their shifts the 2 weeks I was out of town.
And your coworkers didn't know you were going out of town?
They didn't care because I was the default coverage guy at the time. When someone else needed coverage for their shift, they usually called me.
Right, but what about your supervisor? Didn't your supervisor know you were going out of town and let the others know you weren't going to be there?
They did. However, I think that the staff kind of ignored that. When I left that store, because they fired a manager who had given me my first and only pay raise at that location in 5 years. When I left, and I made several phone calls to various agencies that regulate that particular industry in that area, and half of the staff ended up having to be terminated for not being legally able to work in that facility. That location nearly went out of business.
Wow, that's
And when
terrible.
they did recover, in order to replace me, they had to hire 16 people to cover the amount of work I had been putting into the place.
Wow. That's just a lack of understanding on your coworkers' part because they just didn't care. And that also goes back to what I said earlier about the lack of work ethic. That lack of work ethic is the reason why operations fall apart. You don't have people who want to work. And it sounds like that everybody who worked in your department, you were the only one who was truly serious about your job. If they were serious, they would have known that you were not in town and that you couldn't possibly show up at work that day.
You would think so. But a lot of my coworkers, being minors themselves, didn't exactly have as much control over their schedule as they might have wished they had.
Right. And it's just a problem with younger employees. The younger employees just especially lack the work ethic. They don't really care about their jobs. They want to go to work, hide in the corner and play with their phones, and then expect to get a paycheck. They don't really want to do their job seriously, and it's just a sad fact of life. And you don't help customers when you're like that. You don't. When you're neglecting your duties, it looks bad on the store and the chain as a whole, as a corporation as a whole, and then it drives customers away. They'll just go to your competitor, give them their money while your corporation goes out of business because the employees they hired just weren't good.
And there was a financial institution that I have decided to no longer do business with because they intentionally delayed my mortgage payment a couple of months. And because of their negligence, I nearly lost my house to foreclosure. This particular bank, because of the way they were behaving, nearly made a disabled war veteran homeless by means of foreclosure. I am extremely angry at them, and to this day, I still get angry thinking about what they were doing. It actually took almost 2 hours on the phone to actually get it straightened out, and then had to get a supervisor involved because the employee refused to fix the problem. So one of the call center supervisors and I had to call the mortgage company to put an expedition order on it so that they'd process it for an amount totaling nearly $3,000 in a single month to get caught up.
Wow, that's just unacceptable. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's probably the worst story I've heard out of all the stories that have been shared today. That is just sickening and evil and heartless right there.
Yeah, and that wasn't the first time that they'd screwed me over either. That's why that particular institution I no longer do business with. I do not recommend them. And I have actually blocked them as a spammer in my email inbox.
Good. Yeah. They don't deserve your business. Not after that. They deserve to go out of business because of that. That is not how you treat a customer. We've heard a lot of horror stories and cringe stories about bad customer service and bad customer treatment today, but yours takes the cake as the worst one. That's awful.
And then there's a national retailer that an out-of-state friend of mine actually purchased for me online for me to pick up locally. And I was at a doctor's appointment when it was ready. So I went there after my doctor's appointment, And they'd actually closed the online order pickup for the day, even though the hours had been confirmed online. The manager would not hand over the item and would not explain why they wouldn't do so. I'm that angry. Let their customer service know why. They're still working there.
That's downright terrible. That is just, I mean, you paid for the item. It's your item. They're holding it hostage. They're the ones who are stealing from you. That's unacceptable. That is crazy, crazy stupid for them to do something like that. That is just crazy.
The friend later canceled that order, bought an alternative dash cam for my car from one of their rival retailers.
Wow.
Who did allow me to pick it up and actually made sure it was me by checking my ID when I showed up later that same day to pick up the item at the rival retailer.
They were able to step in after the initial retailer committed this outrageous act of stupidity. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get why they would do that. That manager needs to be fired, and he should not be working anywhere near retail.
I'm actually adding on to what Justin was saying pertaining to that particular story, because I know about the story about the dash cam. And if I'm not mistaken, the purchaser's order was refunded by the company stating fraudulent activity, which really was absurd. The purchaser, the out-of-state friend who bought the item, their purchase was refunded by the company stating it was fraudulent activity.
Fraudulent activity, wow.
Yeah, and it was that particular friend who had, to call them is like, hey, what's going on? Why is there fraud? It just didn't make any sense when he explained it to me. I was like, what? Like, it was their card, their authorization, and yeah, they had to call customer service to okay it because there was a user error going on, but they gave the okay to go ahead and make the purchase, and now they're calling fraud on the account. It just didn't make any sense. And on top of that, there was no answer given for why, with the internal investigation for 2 months. They said they'd hear back in 2 weeks. There should be no reason to wait 2 months for an answer when the answer was given 2 weeks ago. They just never contacted you when they said they were going to email you on resolution.
It's been since September, and me and that friend have yet to hear back from that particular company's customer service about that fraud investigation.
I thought they heard back. Back in December.
It's time to take things further. You need to go further up the chain of command until you get an answer.
I agree. Additionally, there was also a delivery from a well-known national pharmacy that actually that friend had ordered a OTC medicine that I use that they wanted to help me out because I was in a bit of a tight spot at the time, and ordered it as billed to their card to be delivered to me. It was their name, my address on the shipping label. And when the customer service agent called that friend on that friend's lunch break at work to straighten it out, that friend actually had to have their customer service, the delivery customer service agent center, call me about the delivery. And then they accused me of being that friend's daughter, even though that particular friend is nearly 10 years younger than I am.
You mean their son, Justin?
Yeah, that really made me mad.
And then didn't they say that they accused your single-family home in a gated homeowners association community of being an apartment complex? Correct me if I'm wrong.
They did, and I did not have a vehicle at the time, and that delivery company wanted me to walk 36 miles round trip in triple-digit temperatures.
What?
Mind it feels like triple digit was 104. It felt like 109, and they wanted me to go to their depot to pick it up and walk home.
And you have thermal regulation issues.
I have actually had heat stroke a total of at least 6 times. Thankfully, I've not had to be hospitalized in any of those incidents. But because of that, my internal thermal regulator does not work correctly.
That is just outrageously brain dead on that company's part. That is, I just don't have anything to say about that. That's unacceptable. That's crazy, crazy, crazy unacceptable and outrageous.
Later on, after that friend and I conference called them after that friend was home from work, we conference called them and told them that they would either deliver it by 10 p.m. the next day, or they were going to be paying for my hospital bill.
Well, they should pay for your hospital bill.
And getting the FTC involved and, all them.
Ultimately, they delivered it a couple of days late.
They delivered it the next day, but it was, you told the driver, and it was just absurd. Even the driver was like, what?
The driver was completely flabbergasted.
If whenever things go that far, then don't be afraid to contact the FTC, because they do need to know. And then also, don't be afraid to contact your local attorney general's office as well, too. You're only missing out if you don't notify the proper authorities. Notify the proper authorities when you feel that a company has just taken their negligence too far.
There was an instance that I actually had to call the United States Postal Service, the USPS, on something that I didn't understand. And apparently I had reused a USPS flat rate box, which, by the way, was completely beaten up and looked like the Jeep had gone over it 10 years ago continuously. And it literally was all dinged up and beaten up and everything. And I like to reuse the packaging so I don't have to worry, and I know it's good packaging and I know it's safe packaging, so I didn't know any better. So I used a reused, definitely destroyed, beaten up USPS flat rate box to send my dad a Christmas gift that I had ordered and I had shipped to me. And I had turned around and sent the gifts off to, the respective people, in this case being my dad. So apparently they were charging me more, and I didn't know why. But apparently it was because I had used a flat rate box instead of what I did, which was I weighed the item and used the weight to pay for that. So apparently I had to pay like $10 extra for the shipping when I already paid, oh gosh, it was like $13 for that particular package to be sent off to my dad. $13 for that, $14 because of the weight of the product. It was like 8 or 9 pounds. It was books. I got my dad some books that I thought he would enjoy, and I sent them off, send them off to my dad. He really enjoyed them, but the fact of the matter is I had to chew out the USPS because we were not on the same page at all. The rep was not explaining to me in a way that I can understand. I think this was a supervisor at that, was not understanding that I didn't understand why I had to be charged additional. Now, I am currently I am on SSDI. I have disability income, and I'm on a fixed income at the moment. So because of that, and I'm not working at the moment, but looking to go back soon, I am on a limited budget. So to have me pay the additional $9 and not understand that I'm on a fixed budget here, like I had to delay sending a relative's Christmas gift out because I didn't have the funds for it because I'm on a fixed budget. So they thankfully understood that I can't send it out now. They're like, you don't even need to get us anything. I'm like, trust me, your grandparents, I want to get you that. So anyways, beside the point, I'm on a fixed budget, Christian. I can't always afford to pay the extra fees that you're tagging on because, it was my error that I used a flat rate box and it clearly was beaten up in the system and you can see it when you scan it. Like, it just was astonishingly. I just don't understand why I would have to pay additional for that box to get the package when my dad already got the package. My dad had opened the package on Christmas Eve on video chat with me. And I got this email saying I had owed more on the package, on the tracking information, the 28th or 29th of December. Wow. Christmas Eve being the 24th, it just didn't make any sense. So I had to call them out on it. It's like, why am I paying more? Why do I have to pay more for this? Oh, you used a flat rate box. You used a flat rate box. Okay, well, that's not what I didn't know that. So why do I have to pay more when I'm on a fixed budget, Christian? Mm-hmm. Why should I do that?
You shouldn't have to do that. And the package got delivered regardless, and I just don't understand. I don't know what they were thinking or what they were trying to do, but what USPS did was also incredibly unacceptable, and I would take extreme precaution if you ever decide to use them again. That's not right.
I kind of have no choice but to use them because they're the only carrier that picks up in front of my apartment door.
That's true. Yeah, if you go through FedEx or UPS, you have to go and leave it off at one of their storefronts.
And then you end up paying an arm and a leg. And I don't have a driver's license, Christian. I'm 32 years old. I do not drive. I do not have a license. I do not know how to drive. I never went for my learner's permit either because I just don't feel safe as a driver, personally. So I chose not to get a driver's license. And that's a personal choice. And people don't understand. Well, you're 32. Why don't you drive? You should be driving by now. Hell, I started driving when I was 16. I don't care if you started driving when you were 16. Personal choice.
Exactly.
They just don't respect that. So the only fact of the matter is I have to resort to USPS. I have no choice.
That's unfortunate, especially since they gave you such horrible customer service. I've had customer service with USPS too. I remember they lost a stereo receiver that I ordered on eBay in the mail. It had to get rerouted twice. I believe it was coming from Massachusetts. And when it finally arrived, tracking number said it arrived, it was nowhere to be found. I called my local USPS branch, the one that was mentioned in the tracking history. It shows on the tracking history which location it went through with its zip code, and I called the location that was in that zip code. I called them 5 times. I left my phone number several times. After they told me somebody was going to call me back, they never called me back. The package got lost. I had to contact eBay, and thankfully they were able to issue me a refund and took my side. But we've all had our problems with USPS. They don't offer the best customer service. It's not right that they don't really care about the customer. If something gets lost, they just act like it's not their problem when clearly it is. They were the ones handling it. They own the parcel until it arrives at the recipient's doorstep or destination, yet they're just so neglectful. And it just makes me mad thinking about it too. And I want to end the show by saying, don't destroy the customer service experience by showing neglect. Show concern for your customer. Show that you care about your customer, that you want to get their problem solved, that you care about ensuring that they'll come back to you for repeat business. If you aren't showing concern, if you aren't showing that you care about getting their problem solved, they're going to run off to one of your competitors. They will never conduct business with you again, and you've just lost some money. So that's my final word on the subject.
I just want to say to all the listeners, whether they be managers, employees, or anything like that, this show might have shown a lot of bad customer service, but there's a hell of a lot of great customer service out there from all sorts of companies, whether it be restaurants, whether it be phone people, insurances, face-to-face shops, retail areas, market stalls, all sorts of things. So it's not just a one-sided conversation or a BizCast. It's about the overall customer service that people expect to get. But the majority is very good, in my opinion. So.
Right. That's what today's episode was about. We wanted to talk about what business owners can do to make their businesses better in this new year. And we're mainly focusing on customer experience. How can you make things better for your customers when they come to conduct business with you? What can you do to avoid pitfalls, avoid making them upset? Because you could have a regular customer who's been doing business with you for years, but if you mess up one time, and that one time that you mess up is that horrendously bad, you can break that relationship just like that. They will walk away and they will go to one of your competitors and give them the business instead. And that happens quite a bit. I've seen it happen quite a bit myself. I've seen firms who've had regular customers of 30 years lose their customers due to dishonesty from the owner. That happened more recently. I mean, it's just horrible. I know someone who was a regular customer for a good 30 years or so of a tax firm, and because the owner of said tax firm began engaging in dishonest practices, he decided to take his business elsewhere. 30-year customer. It's just sad that people who do good end up going to the dark side. Business owners who have been honest for so long decide they want to start lying and cheating their customer base. It's horrible. Always stay consistent. Make sure that you're always delivering top-notch customer service. Your customers are leaving your storefront with a 5-star review in mind. And always treat them with respect. Look into every single detail you possibly can about any issue they're having, and always make sure that they leave with the issue solved. And always be truthful. Always be truthful to them. Never decide one day you want to move to the dark side and start lying. That's just going to kill your business. Focus on your customers. They are the lifeblood of your company. Listen to everything they have to say. Always be extremely concerned when they have concerns, and do whatever you can to resolve the issue. Never tell your customer you can't resolve the issue or they're not worth your time. Never ever do that. That will destroy your business just like that. And that's my final word on the subject. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say before we close out?
I do, Christian, if I may.
Yes.
So, adding on to what you were saying, consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Always deliver on your promises. And if you can't deliver, don't make a promise.
That's right.
Because the worst thing you can do is promise something to your customer and then fail to deliver.
That's right. That's exactly right. When your company offers a guarantee, make sure that you know 1,000%, no, 1,000,000% that you can fulfill that guarantee every time. Think back on Domino's Pizza. They had the "You've got 30 minutes or less" campaign. That was a slogan or idea, or that was a guarantee that they've always tried to abide by for many years. Why did they stop honoring that guarantee? Because they couldn't do it anymore. They couldn't deliver in 30 minutes or less anymore. You know, if they didn't get your order to you in 30 minutes or less, then the order was free. And over the years, they started to realize that they could not honor that guarantee anymore, so they dropped it. So, yeah, if you can't honor your guarantee, don't honor it. They stopped honoring it simply because they couldn't do it anymore.
One last thing. Treat every customer like you want to be treated.
The golden rule.
The service you get or what you give is what you expect to get
Right.
when you go anywhere. So that's how you should be thinking. Should be the mindset of, how do I want to be treated when I go anywhere or buy or anything like that. And then you put yourself in the customer's position. You are the customer. So how would you want to be treated?
Exactly. That's called the golden rule, and that's not only applicable in the business world, but also in life in general. Treat others how you want to be treated. And, you know, just because you're an authority figure or you're a boss, that doesn't give you a license to treat all of your subordinates like they're nobodies and push them around and yell at them and treat them like slaves. And that's going to be a conversation for another show. But you're right. Treat the customers how you want to be treated. Practice the golden rule.
At the end of the day, Christian, the employees are also customers.
That's right. That's right. We're all customers. You have a lot of retail experience, but on top of that, you're also a customer. I'm a business owner, and I'm also a customer.
I work at a supermarket. Actually, as I mentioned right now, I'm not employed, but I'm looking to go back. I just had to take a temporary break from it, but I reapplied to the supermarket I worked at. I've actually gone to a rival supermarket with my work shirt on. What they had at the rival, they did not have at the place I work at. So I've gone to the rival with my work shirt on. I've gone to Stop and Shop with my ShopRite shirt on, and they're rivals. Just like, say, Walmart and Target are rivals,
right.
or anything like that. I've gone to Stop and Shop, my local Stop and Shop supermarket, with my ShopRite shirt on. Yeah, I get some stares here and there, but if you really think about it, the selection at Stop and Shop and the selection at ShopRite are not a one-to-one. Brands that Stop and Shop has that ShopRite doesn't, and vice versa. So you got to think, we're customers too.
That's right.
We associates are customers too. I worked at a department store. Half my paycheck would go to clothing for work, or clothing or whatever for gifts.
Right.
So we're customers too.
Yeah. That's right. I remember you sharing this story in a previous episode. Yeah, we're customers too, and if we work at any type of retail environment or restaurant, maybe we need to go to a competitor because what we work at doesn't offer the product that we need. I went to Target once looking for toggle bolts, and the employee told me, go to Walmart. We don't have them here. He was just upfront about it. He didn't care that he worked for Target. He even told me Target's selection of hardware is not the greatest. He was just upfront and honest about it. He said, you're better off going to Walmart or Home Depot.
Ultimately, the customers who spend money to the retailers are the ones who are paying that retailer's bills.
That's right.
And when you take your money to that firm's competitor, you've essentially fired that company.
That's right. That's right. You don't go back. And that also applies to locations too. Let's say you go to a chain store, you have a bad experience at one of their locations, but you have a good experience at one of their other locations. You can fire the bad location by giving your money to the good location. I mean, it all goes to the same place, but the district managers do review which locations are performing and which ones are underperforming. The ones that underperform get reported back to corporate. They review it and then they decide whether or not they're going to keep it open or not. Having bad customer service can kill locations, so keep that in mind too. You can fire locations just as you can fire competitors.
Exactly.
I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. I thank you guys for joining me. Y'all have had some great stories, some great advice. Business owners who are looking to change in this new year, listen to this wonderful panel. They've all told you what they don't like. They've also talked to you about what you do like. Listen to them. Improve. Make your customer experience better. Listen to your customers. Show them that you want to serve them and you're not just trying to take their money. Show them that you care about their happiness with the products you sell, the services you offer, and of course, the experience they have coming in to your place of business. And if you're a service business, make sure that when you visit them on site, you are providing that wonderful service as well, where you are listening to them and ensuring that every single need they have is taken care of, every question is answered, every concern is addressed. Remember, the customers are your kings and queens. They rule you. Listen to them, take their word seriously, and always make sure that they are happy when you're done conducting business with them for the day. And with that being said, I wish everybody the best. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for all of your contributions and your wonderful stories. This was a great episode, and I know that business owners are going to learn a lot from it. Thank you once again, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you for having us, Christian.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks for having us.
Yes, you guys are awesome.